I've been sponsored by about every major gacha game and gacha game studio. In the last 12 months, I've been sponsored by HoYoverse for Zenless Zone Zero, Honkai Star Rail, and Genshin Impact, although not in the last 6 months, and we'll get into that. I've been sponsored by Kuro Games for Wuthering Waves and Punishing Grey Raven. I've been sponsored by Hotta Studio for Neverness to Everness. I've been sponsored by Hypergryph for Arknights. I've been sponsored by Manju for Azure Lane. I've been sponsored by pretty much every major studio and every major gacha release over the course of the last year. Girls Frontline 2, Brown Dust 2, Snowbreak, Ether Gazer, Infinity Nikki, Etheria Restart, Black Beacon, Crystal of Outlaw, Nikke, Silver and Blood, Reverse 1999, Lost Sword. The list goes on and on. If the game has released and is at all decent, I have been sponsored by them. And while I've enjoyed the vast majority of partnerships that I've had, some really, truly did stand out more than others, for better or for worse. Now, I would like to preface this entire thing by stating that I am very strict with my sponsors. I get over 100 emails per month to cover 100 different games or apps, and I accept maybe 5 to 10 of those. I tend to do recurring games because I build a rapport with the studios and I get to know the devs and the publishers. I have very specific conditions to my sponsors. Let me say what I want and don't try to control me. You supply the brief, you supply what you want me to focus on, such as a new update, new characters that are being released, but you let me say and do my video how I want. If you see a sponsored video by me anywhere, it's because the studio let me and we moved forward with it. But not all studios are easy to work with, and some are outright a pain in the ass. I want to discuss those in this video to give you a behind the scenes look at how some of those work, at least with the major studios. I'm going to go ahead here and start this off with Kuro Games. The reason for that is because they are arguably the best developer and publisher that I have ever worked with. When I worked with Punishing Grey Raven, they reached out to me. This was ahead of their PC client release, and they said, "Hey Stix, we know that you've played Punishing Grey Raven in the past. Are you interested in doing a sponsored video where you discuss your thoughts on the closed beta of our PC client?" And I said, yeah, sure. We talked through it. And then ultimately they said, you know what? We talked through it. I got given my guidelines. I asked them, you are aware though that if the beta isn't any good, I might say some negative things about it. And they responded with, sure, we do not want to control you at all. What we actually want you to do is release a video, a full dedicated video where you talk about your experiences. You can say nothing but negatives if you want to. You can shit all over our game as long as the feedback, the criticisms specifically, are objective and you elaborate on them. So as an example, they said you could call Punishing Grey Raven the worst gacha game ever. You could say that the combat in Punishing Grey Raven is the worst combat you've ever experienced, as long as you say why you believe that is. They gave me the complete freedom to say whatever I wanted. They then followed up with, additionally, we don't even need to see a draft. You can just go ahead and publish the video whenever you want. You don't even need to show us. That's how much we not only have faith in Punishing Grey Raven, but also in you as a content creator. That's why I've done over 15 sponsors for them in the last 12 months. Maybe over 15 actually, now that I think about it. They are hands down the most hands-off gacha game studio out there, and their lack of control and their complete freedom to do whatever you want in whatever way you want is why I continue to enjoy their games, enjoy them as a company, continue to work with them. Now let's talk HoYo. HoYo are the complete opposite. They are incredibly controlling. They are so controlling, in fact, that I have not received a sponsor for 6 months. The reason for that is they don't want their HoYo sponsored creators covering Kuro Games. They don't care if you cover Azure Premilia. They don't care if you cover Nikke. They don't care if you cover Brown Dust 2. No, they just don't want you to cover Wuthering Waves. They were fine with me covering Punishing Grey Raven, but I was told I had to either only cover HoYo rather than Kuro, as opposed to being able to cover both. Kuro are perfectly fine with me covering all HoYo games, no issue whatsoever. HoYo or not. HoYo clearly define what you are not allowed to cover. They want to kind of maintain this monopoly on content creators, and honestly, I couldn't deal with that. I like having the freedom to cover whatever I want, however I want. They're incredibly controlling, and I get it. Their games are high quality. They want a certain quality to be met, a certain standard to be met. That's totally fine. But at the same time, given the sheer amount of things necessary for you to do and the inability to critique anything in your sponsored video, ultimately turned me away from working with them. They were a little more hands-off initially. They just said, we wanted you to cover this specific update or react to something in specific, and I was like, okay, cool, sure, that sounds great. I never really had any negative comments or feedback to give because I would only ever end up ultimately doing a very small segment on a much larger game, and typically I had a lot of fun in whatever I covered. Before we go any further, I do want to take a moment here to thank all of my incredible patrons over on Patreon and my YouTube channel members who allow for me to continue to do dedicated videos like this every single day. You guys are absolutely phenomenal, and I genuinely cannot thank you all enough for the support. Hotta Studio recently sponsored a lot of content creators for Neverness Whoeverness, myself included. They were completely hands-off. I will give kudos to them. When they offered to sponsor me for Tower of Fantasy, this was like the OG Hotta Studio, not the new Hotta Studio that exists now. Completely different staff, I've been told. They were very controlling and they wanted the entire thing to be handled a very specific way. I ultimately turned them down because I was not happy with how it was being presented. But this Neverness Whoeverness, they were completely hands-off. They literally said, you can say and do whatever the hell you want. They didn't require I follow talking points. There was no brief given. They gave me complete freedom to say and do whatever I want. There was no draft necessary. I just went ahead and posted my stuff. It was an easy get in, have fun, get out. Say what I liked, say what I didn't. Nobody cares. Move on. I genuinely and wholeheartedly appreciate how much Hotta Studio has improved as a company, and they were so easy to work with. Hypergryph has been very easy to work with as well. This is a very professional studio. I've never had to do any revisions for any of the sponsored content I've done. I've done over a dozen Arknight sponsors over the course of the last 2 years. I did an ex-Astra sponsor. They wanted to sponsor me for PoppyCon. They offered to sponsor me for Arknight's Enfield. All they do is they offer you a brief. They say, we just want you to cover the new update or want you to react to a trailer, and then that's it. You just go through the talking points in your own way. New character, new event, new update. This is just, you just have to remain completely informative, and then that's it. You send them the draft. I've never had them turn me away. They never asked for any revisions, anything. They are very hands-off. They just want you to cover the event or the update in question, and that is it. I have worked with them over a dozen times, and the professionalism they've exhibited has been incredible, which is why I love working with them. Shift Up is another company I love working with. Actually, this was probably one of the easiest sets of sponsors I ever did. When I essentially, they just threw a ton of money at me and were like, so Stix, we just want you to go ahead and do several Nikkei streams, however you want. Absolutely no problem. We don't care what you talk about, what you showcase, as long as you're streaming it for 3 hours a day, several times over the course of a month, and then just upload like your thoughts or VODs or what the hell ever. You do whatever the hell you want. We don't need to know, as long as you upload a set number of videos and do a set number of streams, you're Gucci, brother. And that was what I did. No restrictions, no care, concern at all. I love Shift Up. I've worked with them probably over a dozen times too over the course of last year. I actually have a Nikkei sponsor coming in just like a month, which is awesome. That is gonna go easy as well because they all tend to. Because Nikkei knows what they want and they know what their creators like and what their creators' viewers want. I'm a huge degenerate, very cultured content creator, and they know that I'm gonna cover what they want me to cover anyway without even asking. I've worked with Manju probably 5, maybe 6 times. I'm a little bit salty because unfortunately I have never been reached out to for Azure Premilia, but for Azure Lane, they were very unrestrictive. The sponsors I've done have been just, here, react to this skin, and they'd send me like multiple different short videos or GIFs of certain characters and certain outfits, and they're like, so we're releasing this new event. Here's a new skin for a character. We just kind of want you to go through and admire the skins. And I'm like, okay, cool. Sure, yeah, it sounds great. So then they pay you to just essentially look at their website, say, here's the update, here's what's going on in the update, and then just go Google, like, just ogle and go, whoa, and just like lose your mind at everything on display. Very passionate, very professional, very, very easy to work with. And then there's Brown Dust 2, which is probably, in retrospect, the easiest sponsorships I've ever done. I've done 8 for them in the last like year and a half, 2 years. What they do is they send me an update trailer and with the event on their website, and they say, Stix, we just want you to look at the trailer and react genuinely. If there is a moment where you go, whoa, or your jaw drops, or you have to pause the video to admire what is on screen, you go ahead, it's whatever, just do whatever you want. And I think for the most part, like, these are the most professional companies that I've worked with. Well, with the exception of HoYo. And they're the most freeing, they're the kindest, most passionate developers and publishers. They give me complete freedom to do whatever I want. And there are so many other gacha games that do too. Like, I don't want to just limit it to these select few, but it's just like, at the end of the day, these are the companies that have faith in their games. And these are the companies that know that you know what your viewers want and what is good and bad about their game. So they give you that freedom to say and do whatever you want. I appreciate that. That is why I will continue to promote them, hype them up, and cover all the games that they push out. And hopefully you continue to support them too. I know you think that you just hit the end of the video, and technically, yeah, you have. And I know your first reaction is to close out of it at this juncture, but don't. No, instead, I urge you to take a moment here and click one of the videos on screen that are coming up in just a moment, so you remain up to date with everything going on in the gacha genre. Trust me, you're not going to regret doing so. Stay flaccid.